Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Nick Griffin Beyond the Pale. And wherever you're joining me from and whatever time it is of the day with you, you're all very welcome indeed. Right, let us dive absolutely straight into the show because I've got a lot for you today. A little bit different today. I thought unavoidably we talk so much about the immigration thing, the Iran war, Ukraine, all the usual stuff that I thought let's do something completely different. So I want to talk to you today about Doomsday. Or in particular, Doomsday and the tech elite, because the tech elite are busy, all of them, Musk and all the rest of them, constantly basically telling us, invest your money in this thing because this AI business is going to transform the world. Everything's going to be wonderful. We're going to solve, the minute we've got this artificial general intelligence, this stuff that's cleverer than us, it's going to solve all our problems very rapidly. It's going to revolutionize our industries. We're going to produce everything we possibly need, and we'll find some way of distributing to the masses, and we'll all live happily ever after. It's going to be a wonderful world, which will be all well and good if we can believe it, which is very difficult. But also there's the question of whether they'd believe it. And what I want to talk to you today shows that they do not. And here we go. The billionaires preparing for the end of the world, and there's some of the main ones there. And indeed, they've got apocalypse insurance plans, the big tech barons or moguls, and they're building our future. But they seem to know there's something so horrible in it that they're making plans to look after themselves, which I suppose you can't blame them, but it's not necessarily good for us. So what have we got? Well, let's go man by man, shall we? Because they're all of them investing in doomsday bunkers, generally on huge ranches, very often in New Zealand, and certainly a very, very long way away from the rest of us, very often also on islands. They give all sorts of reasons for this, that there's some kind of great danger from AI, from their technology. There's the possibility of pandemics, a real one next time. There's the climate crisis, more on that in a bit, and social collapse, all sorts of horrors, whereby they're telling us one thing, but they're getting on with looking after their future. So let us start with Mr. Zuckerberg, shall we? So here's Mark Zuckerberg, and there's a shot of part of Hawaii that he owns. So it's officially the United States, but it's a very, very long way away from Detroit or Alabama or New York or any of the other places where if it goes wrong, by God, it will go horribly wrong. And what has Mr. Zuckerberg got himself lined up? Well, the man who's telling us that AI is going to transform communication, work, creativity, productivity, since 2014 has been building the Kulau Ranch on Kauai, Hawaii, on 1,400 acres of lovely tropical paradise, and he spent £270 million on a £57,000 square foot underground refuge with independent energy and food supplies, a blast-proof door, an industrial scale kitchen, 30 bedrooms. But he says it's just a little shelter. It's a sort of basement, really. It's certainly not the Doomsday bunker, even though he has made all the contractors sign non-disclosure agreements. So make of that what you will. I guess you probably make of it what we need to make of it already. Let me just dive into the chat, in fact, and see what's going on here. Joined by Andy Lighton. Good day to you. Westover 1314. Greetings to you as well. Roger Madison. Paul Telford from up the road. John Kopasaki. Hello, John. And Ken Wood. Good to see you, Ken. As John Kopasaki said, they created the monster and they know there's a chance it'll go very, very wrong. Paul Telford suggests, let's make their bunkers their coffins. Well, that very clearly is one of the things that they're concerned about. It's not just that the technology may go wrong or something bad might happen. It's the fact there's lots of us and we might be bad. Well, we'll see about that, won't we? Rather difficult for ordinary Americans to be bad on Hawaii. Right, who have we got next? Peter Thiel, the founder of PayPal. Let's have a look at Peter, shall we? Now, he's got no vested interest at all in the future because he's not got a vested interest in the future, the next generation, shall we say. But here's Peter Thiel, and there's two shots actually of the view of the strange place that he's trying to build in New Zealand, and there's a view from the strange place he's trying to build in New Zealand. And what does Peter Thiel say about this, or what's he spending on this? Well, it's a huge estate, the other side of the world, with plans for luxury lodges and bunkers. New Zealand has been described as the last bus stop on the planet for tech billionaires, so it's their plan B. Now, unfortunately for Peter Thiel, his plans for that have been knocked back because he's fallen foul of local planning regulations. If he was in anywhere else other than basically an Anglo-Saxon country, let's face it, he could just buy the local authorities and get what he wanted. But there's still a shred, just a shred, of the old Victorian decency and morality and law, which said that no one, the mightiest king or emperor, nor the richest tech baron, is above the law, and he's still got to comply with their planning regulations. So Peter's got a bit of a problem with his own bunkers in the place, basically with no heavy industry, no military capacity. It's no target even in the most ghastly nuclear war. So that's where he wants to go, but he's not quite got it sorted yet. Well, tough luck to you, Peter. Who have we got next? Let's have a look. Jeff Bezos of Amazon and various other things that he's bought since with the money. Let's have a look at Jeff. What's he doing? This is an interesting one. He hasn't got any, well, there's no specific bunker that's come out that Mr. Bezos is building this. Instead, our Jeff has bought himself a huge chunk of Florida, Miami Beach, and there it is. And if you look to the left, you know what that is? That's the sea. Now, that actually should strike you as curious, because Jeff Bezos, along with all the rest of these people, is absolutely convinced, or tells us he's convinced, and tells us that we must be convinced, that climate change is creating a disastrous rise in sea level, and that places like Miami, Florida, are going to be swamped and underwater, by next Tuesday. But he has spent vast sums of money, well, 68 million on that waterfront property on Miami Beach alone, despite the fact that it's at sea level, and despite the fact that we're supposed to believe that hurricanes are going to get worse and worse and worse. So curious that, isn't it? But anyway, apparently he is known to be investing in, quote, luxury doomsday bunkers, unquote, but we just don't yet know where they are. There's probably something under his holding in Miami Beach, even though, of course, that's below sea level even now, let alone once all the polar bears are drowned. So there you go. That is, or was, Mr. Bezos. So who do we move on to? Sam Altman. There's another one. Have a look at this. This from the US version of The Sun. Headline, End of Days, ChatGPT creator. So he's really probably worldwide now, that's the head of the best known of the AI bots. ChatGPT creator Sam Altman's terrifying doomsday bunker prep with guns, gas masks and gold in remote location in the US. So where is this? As far back as 2016. He was named after a New Yorker profile as a man secretly preparing for a scenario where AI collapses society. So as head of OpenAI and ChatGPT, he's saying that it's going to bring massive prosperity, but he does warn it needs some sort of safety controls. And he told the New Yorker in 2016 that he's made an agreement with Peter Thiel that the minute there's any trouble, he's going to fly to Thiel's New Zealand property to avoid whatever it is. And Altman has also described stockpiling guns. That's curious, isn't it? Because all these liberal techie creeps absolutely demand that Americans must be disarmed, that Brits must never be allowed to be armed. We mustn't have arms. But Mr. Altman is busily there saying, I've stockpiled arms and gas masks from the Israeli Defense Force. I don't quite know what's wrong with gas masks from the American military if you live in America, but there you go. He's got IDF gas masks. He's got gold. He's stored potassium iodide. I've got some of that because it's very, very cheap. Actually, it's no use to someone, Sam Altman and my age, but if you've got young children in your family, you should have potassium iodide so that if there is some nuclear catastrophe, even a civilian one, you can give them the appropriate dose of potassium iodide because it's a huge defense against radiation sickness. So not much use for older people, but good for the kids. So get some. It's very cheap. You never know. It lasts forever. Buy it once, never have to buy it again. You hope you never ever use it. Also, stockpiling antibiotics. Good move that. Batteries and water. Yes, he sees something really nasty coming down the track. Bear in mind, he's the top CEO of the company which he is building, which he himself has said is the most transformative and potentially dangerous technology in human history. And he's sufficiently worried to be stockpiling guns, gas masks, gold, potassium iodide, antibiotics, batteries and water, and no doubt all sorts of other things, including, for sure, food and ammunition, because guns are no use without the latter. Now his co-founder of OpenAI, one Ilya Skeva, is on record as saying, we're definitely going to build a bunker before we release AGI. That's the super version of AI, which can think for itself and will probably decide to get rid of us. We're definitely going to build a bunker before we release it, when the rest of us can't have bunkers. So I respectfully suggest to Ilya, it might be better not to release this bloody thing if it's so dangerous that you need bunkers and the rest of us without bunkers, well, we've had it, haven't we? This is pretty grim stuff. And you can say, is this just men driven almost mad with their own power and their own wealth? Or are these men who've been driven mad by their own power and their own wealth and the temptations that come with that being gripped with something much, much more evil? Because the idea of a super rich man that I'm going to build a bunker so I'll be okay while the rest of humanity perishes is so wacky and crazed that you have to consider the question, is this actually demonic? Is this satanic? Because it sure as hell is not normal. Who else have we got in all this? One last one, I think. Probably a lovely looking character, this one. Here's Mr. Hoffman. Who's Mr. Hoffman? This is Reid Hoffman, head of LinkedIn. Again, his public position is he's an AI investor, an advocate for AI-powered productivity. He goes on about that. But he's also very vocal about what he calls apocalypse insurance. And he stated that up to half of Silicon Valley's super rich, that's an awful lot of people actually, that isn't just the people who are absolutely at the top of the AI food chain. He's saying half of Silicon Valley's super rich have some form of disaster preparedness, including luxury bunkers and escape homes. Now, actually, I don't blame them for that, especially the ones who've got families. Why shouldn't they? They're not necessarily going to make the world go to hell in a handcart, or they're not exactly helping. But seeing that it might go that way, and seeing as you're super rich, why wouldn't you do something to protect yourself and your family and a wider circle of loved ones and valuable colleagues, perhaps, from a disaster? Fair enough. But when we're talking about the men who are actively creating one of the main things which everyone in this circle believes can lead to the disaster, then I think we've got a serious problem. Let me just dive back in the chat to see what you're saying. Skynet isn't so much science fiction anymore. Indeed not, John. No. That's an interesting. Ken Wood says an old movie with Ava Gardner and Gregory Peck set in New Zealand about the world after a nuclear attack. I've seen also people in America buying up the old Cold War missile silos and converting them into bunkers. Yep, quite something. Modern day slave drivers, they are indeed, Andy. They are indeed. Right, carry on, shall we? There's lots and lots here. Yep. Others named in this, people buying vast amounts of land. Well, Bill Gates, of course, some of that is investment in the new bugs for us, steaks for them, agricultural operation, but that's one of those things. But Gates, Larry Page, Richard Branson, Oprah Winfrey, all these and others are known to have bought huge chunks of land on islands, some of them with underground tunnels leading to bunker structures. And nearly all of them, I say this again, if they're not buying land at sea level, they're buying it, if they're not buying islands, they're buying land at sea level because that's where it's pretty, the pretty places. So this isn't just the super rich following the herd, believing what they tell us we must believe. Because if they were doing that, they would not be investing huge sums of money, and especially building underground bunkers in areas at sea level when the sea, according to them and their lies, is going to rise. So they know that that is not true. So they can buy their luxury bunkers near the sea, where it's pretty, and where you've got no neighbours at all on that particular side, or on islands, you've got no neighbours anywhere around you. But also, you have to guess, since they know that their man-made climate change, global warming, sea level rise is nonsense, they know that and they're acting on that knowledge, then they're also acting on a collective knowledge or belief that they've got that something out there, whether it's the wars of the global elite or their AI technology or whatever, something is going to go horribly wrong indeed. Well, that's about it. You could go on and on with these people. If you've heard of Steve Huffman of Reddit, for instance, he said, well, he keeps guns and a motorcycle ready for evacuation. Now, that actually is pretty good advice, because anyone can afford to do that. Don't do this in Britain. Guns, bug out bag, motorcycle, fuel, probably worth doing. Unless you've got babies and people you can't leave behind, then you've got to stand and fight. In which case, I'd suggest, if you're planning on doing that, don't stay in Detroit or Birmingham, either West Midlands or Alabama or anywhere like that. Get somewhere out of the sticks. Not alone. Loners do not survive the chaos, the collapse of society. Families just about survive, but families in communities, they're the people who survive. A large enough community to stand up for itself, and while perhaps not being invincible, is a hard enough target so that anyone looking for easy pickings, like water flowing around a raised point, flows around them and goes somewhere else. That's what you need to be in. Right, so I think that's probably about all I've got to say for that, other than the question now of what do they know? What do these people know? Well, they must be aware that AI is a very large part now of the military industrial complex, which makes war much more likely, because AI might just decide, come on, let's have a war once it's clever enough. So it's a very great danger to merge artificial intelligence and the war machines of the Western world, let alone China and Russia as well. So perhaps they know things about that. They perhaps know far more than we do about what's really going to happen with AI and jobs. And in particular, perhaps they believe, and they may well be right, that it's going to create a jobs apocalypse and unleash total chaos. So not that AI will do consciously bad things to humanity, but just the existence of AI will so disrupt our society that we will do bad things in our society. Entirely possible. Do they know that AI, either with their help or otherwise, is poised to help them and the elite implement the population reduction which they've been banging on about since the early 1970s? I saw a piece the other day of quite a recent discussion where some global elitist was saying we need to reduce the world's population in order to make it all sustainable by 9/10. Not a 10% reduction, a 90% reduction. Because 90% to these people, and their AI for that matter, are useless eaters and dangerous to the planet and dangerous to them. Or do they know that AI is actually idiotic? Yeah, it's supposed to be super clever. So I've done a couple of little bits of usage of it. And initially I thought this would be quite handy, actually. This is really rather good. But I tried several things with Meta AI, which is the AI system which is on WhatsApp, owned by Mark Zuckerberg. And I asked it for some simple things. I'll tell you what they were in a minute. And the results are absurd, ludicrous, and if you follow its advice, catastrophic. Now, this isn't some little 2-bit AI operation got together by a bunch of hillbillies or hillbilly students. No, this is really serious. This is meta AI. And meta AI, of which it is a crucial part, has a capital expenditure, well, last year had a capital expenditure of between $115 billion and $135 billion last year alone. Now that still only makes Meta third in the AI stakes, behind Google and Amazon. But it uses 6.6 gigawatts of electricity a year, more than any of the others. And it's the biggest spender in terms of open AI instead of closed. So Meta AI is a really big operation. So if it can't get complicated things right, the others won't be able to get complicated things right. But I'm not talking about complicated things. I'm talking about AI's ability in the last week. So right now, at the peak of its powers so far, okay, in a month it'll be much more powerful. But this is at the peak of its powers. Already, it's supposed to be poised to transform our world. So I asked it to check some sailing plans that I had for sailing in the Bristol Channel, which is one of the most dangerous places to sail in the world. It's got a huge tidal reach, the third biggest in the world. And it comes in very fast, it goes out very fast, the currents are strong, and it's all funneling, all the Atlantic, as the tide comes in and the wind blows especially, it's all funneling into the Bristol Channel and then into the Avon, into the River Severn estuary. It's a bad piece of water. So I asked Meta AI to check some things and come up with some plans to see if they were the same as mine. And here's the news. Meta AI, this utter genius on which they're spending billions of dollars every month, doesn't actually understand, doesn't know which way the tide floods and ebbs in the Bristol Channel. And even when I told it that the flood tide goes up, heading east into the funnel, and the ebb tide coming out flows west, it couldn't remember it. Okay, you might say, well, so it's just no one's programmed it for that bit of the earth. Well, it should have been able to gather that for itself if it's so bloody clever, but it hadn't done. But no, it's worse than that. It's not just a lack of local knowledge. Meta AI is absolutely convinced that a west wind blows to the west. Now, tides actually do that sort of thing. The bearing of a tide is the direction it's flowing. But winds, as I'm sure you know, a north wind blows from the North Pole. Well, at least it does in the Northern Hemisphere, and it's damn cold as a result. Little children know this, nursery rhymes know this. But Genius AI thinks that the west wind blows to the west, that the east wind heads for the Urals if you're in Europe, that the south wind is going towards the equator if you're on the north. No, it's obviously completely the opposite way around, but even when I told it this repeatedly, it's incapable of learning. In fact, it's worse than that. It can't do basic map orientation. It didn't know which side of the Bristol Channel Wales was. When I told it was north, it thought it was south. It's an utter moron. I asked it, given its total inability to understand maps, I said to it, were you programmed by a woman? It didn't even recognize the joke, nor did it even recognize the sexism. So it's not that it's too woke to get the joke, because it should have said, you can't be saying that, it's sexist. Just didn't get it at all. Straight over its head, because the thing's a feckin' idiot. And the whole thing is idiotic. And I think, therefore, we have to think that the decision of various rich people and your pension funds and all the rest of it to plough vast amounts of money into this thing is an idiocy on a similar scale to the South Sea bubble. And it ain't going to end well. Right, that's the first part of my experiences, direct experiences with this genius technology. I'll tell you more in a moment. I'll just dive in. Lady Matrox says it doesn't send chocolate. Avoid. Yeah, Roger Addison, only as clever as the info and algorithm. Well, that's what you'd assume it is, but there's info out there that the west wind blows from the west. Hasn't been able to get it. And even when I told it, it couldn't learn from it. What the hell is going wrong there? It should instantly be wired back to whatever data center is gobbling stuff up. Someone's raised this point. This is important. We better check it, because someone might be having a laugh at our expense. We need to check it and get it right. No, they haven't. because it got it wrong day after day after day. I could scarcely believe it. So it's worse than not being only as clever as the info. It's not even handling the info. This thing is some kind of, well, it's an autistic technology. Lord help us, because nobody else is going to. Meta AI doesn't like direct, factual, politically incorrect questioning. It most certainly doesn't. No. Lady Matriarch, probably a foreign call centre looking it up. Yes, indeed. So let me carry on. Let me just check. I haven't got a picture up blocking my visage. I haven't. That's good. Well, I think it's good anyway. And I'll tell you some more of my horror stories with AI. Because I'm a technophobe Luddite boomer, when a power bank that I had died, I wanted to buy another power bank. This is so I can charge phones and laptops and things while I'm traveling around. And the last one I bought was a big blue box thing and was quite expensive. So I've been told that the price of technology has come down. So I asked Meta AI to come up with a system for a small power bank, but powerful enough to power not just charging phones, but also a laptop. I told him which one. And also to come up with a system, if possible, whereby I can twin this thing with a small solar charging panel. So if I haven't got mains electricity to charge it up with, I can use a solar panel, having seen they're quite cheap. And it came back like a flash. You want this? It was very reasonable price. I asked it a couple of questions. There were a couple of choices. I picked the one I wanted, paid for it. It arrived a couple of days later. Didn't work because the solar charger panel and the power bank didn't have the right connectivity. They couldn't connect up. Not they couldn't talk to each other. They couldn't connect to each other. There was no, they have to basically, there has to be a male bit and a female bit. And they connect and they do, what power banks and solar panels do when they have this union. They work, but no, wouldn't work. So I asked it and it said, oh, my bad. I forgot, I didn't realize you needed this bit. So you need to buy this power cable. So it's only a few quid. So okay, not in a particular hurry. I'll get it because I want this to work. It's still way, way cheaper than the old system. And this big heavy thing I used to lug around the place. And had to charge up without the solar charging panel because I couldn't afford the two. So I bought this thing and it turned up a couple of days later. Still wouldn't work. So I went to AI. You told me to get this. It doesn't work. Oh, my bad. Sorry, I didn't realize you got that. This happened 4 times and it was still at the end of this. Each time I'm only paying 8 or 9 quid for the bit it says I'm missing. But each time it's coming back wrong. So finally it came back. It's wrong again. And I said, well, this is the 4th time now. Getting on the 5th, you've done it. We've done this. We really need to get this right. Can you tell me exactly what I need? So it said, send me pictures. I've sent it pictures of all these bits before. Send me pictures of the ports. Send me pictures of what it is. So I've done all this before. So I sent the pictures again. Oh, it says, sorry, it's my mistake. My bad. Doesn't say my mistake now because it's trained to be trained. Hey, oh, my bad. My bad, it says. No, you actually need to buy this instead. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice or 3 times or 4 times, shame on me. But I believe this system because I'm a Luddite and it's high tech. But finally they say, no, enough of this. You want me to buy this? Look at these things. Is it going to work? Oh, thanks for pointing it out. No, actually, that power bank you've got cannot be connected in any way, shape or form by anything you can buy to a solar charging panel. I would have told you not to get it if I'd known that. It was the thing that told me to get the damn thing in the first place. So I've given up spending £8 every 2 days on a new piece of gadgetry to put these things together. And I've now got a solar panel, charging panel, which I don't know what to do with, and a small power bank, which I charge up off the mains, like my other power bank. And it's a bigger power bank than my other power bank. So I've now got the capacity to charge the phone about 6 times instead of twice. But I still don't have the capacity to charge the laptop if I'm off the mains. So there we go. Thank you, AI. Thank you very much for nothing. Finally, I was away with almost all the grandchildren over the weekend. They made such a lovely bunch. We had a big picture of them that I was thinking of being a little bit exhibitionist and showing them off. But some of them are at school and so on. So I thought, no, I need to conceal their identities. So I know that I could do this if I get the right software and so on, but I haven't got time for that. It's not my job when AI can do it. So I said to Meta, if I upload you a picture of family and so on. And there was a background. They were at Lake Ullswater, Lake District, Lake or Water as they called up there. And in the background there were people on paddle boards and in boats and so on. So I said, can you take just the group in the foreground, blatantly obvious, they're the ones you can see clearly instead of being 100 yards behind them, and can you pixelate or put black face bars just over their eyes just to conceal their identity? Yes, no trouble, I understand why, blah, blah, I'll do it straight away. And time again, it got it wrong. It just added people to the main group. I said it's when it failed with the black bars, because instead of black bars over the eyes, it put black bars down the picture as if they were in prison. So I said, no, you got that wrong. Oh, I can pixelate the faces. So, okay, pixelate. So it pixelated everything. I said, no, that's not right. So then it repixelated, and this time I got a band of people I had no idea who they were, even pixelated. Just unbelievable. So in the end, I gave up. But every time on this one as well, this thing said, my bad, sorry. So my fear with this moronic AI, actually, if it does actually get the power before it ceases to be a moron, is that it could get rid of us all simply by mistake. So, for instance, someone tells it, look, we've got very valuable real estate in large swathes of Canada and Scotland and Scandinavia, which we can't really use because it's full of midges. It's unbearable. You go up there in the summer and you're scratching your face off within 10 minutes because of the midges. We need to deal with the midges and stop them bothering humans. And AI will sit and think about this. How am I going to eradicate the midges, it will think. Can't eradicate midges. Can't be done for various reasons. But my job is to stop them bothering humans. How am I going to stop the midges bothering the humans? Midges can't be eradicated. Ah, humans can. And the thing will just tell anyone left around, perhaps aliens from another planet, that was a mistake. It'll just say, oh dear, sorry, my bad. It really is, to me, as moronic and stupid, and if it has the power they say it's going to have, very, very dangerous as that. Right, let's dive back into the chat and see what you think of that, folks. Some hacker's laughing his ass off, says Ken. Send it all back for a full refund. Yes. Well, actually, no, I will find a use for the solar panel. It wasn't that expensive. And the other thing, I've got a use for it. It is an example of actually, if you really want something to work, you've got to pay for it. And if you try and pay cheaper, you generally don't get what you thought you were getting. But I thought AI would solve the problem. Like I say, it does not. So, Roger Addison, yes, indeed, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. They destroyed the Earth and then recreated it. Yeah, we're sort of in that level. Many of the things, all sorts of things, which were some of the Monty Python sketches and so on, things which were satire, unbelievably absurd satire in the 1970s, 1980s, even more recently than that, are now just happening all around us. I'm afraid the world is bonkers indeed. So one more thing before we move on from AI, let's have a look at the other scenarios here that might go wrong. And I looked up while researching this, I found this online newspaper, AI newspaper today. Why are tech billionaires building doomsday bunkers? And obviously the article talks about that. Some of the facts and figures I've given you come out of that. And it quotes one Douglas Rushkoff, who's author of Survival of the Richest, who's written about conversations he's had with the ultra-wealthy technology executives about the AI problem and why they are building these fantastic bunkers. And according to him, the billionaires he spoke to are very worried, particularly about the fact that these bunkers had to have other people in them and they need quite tough guy guards. And they've all worried about the fact, how do they control the tough guy guards? So they've thought, among the things he quotes, is to give the guards explosive shock collars or to control the food supply as loyalty mechanisms. The recurring theme, he says, is how do you maintain authority when money no longer has any meaning? Indeed. So why are these billionaires, what are they so afraid of that they have to think, I've got to be guarded by guards who might actually want to kill, rape and eat me? So I've got to fit them with exploding death collars to keep them loyal to me. Well, that ain't going to work very well, is it? So what are they afraid of? And according to this author, they're particularly worried. They're worried about all these things. Pandemic, or so they claim to be. Nuclear war. AI-driven economic collapse, which is an increasingly discussed theory that AI-driven automation could or will eliminate so many jobs so quickly that it'll trigger social instability before political systems can respond. And they fear that there could be a transition where unemployment leaps from 5% to 25% in just a few years' time. They're also worried, so that's AI working, but being too effective and destroying our social cohesion. They're also worried about AI working in a really bad way. They call it AI alignment failure, where advanced AI systems pursue goals which euphemistically are misaligned with human welfare, i.e. it decides to wipe us out. And it's particularly noticeable because this view is held by the people who are building the question systems in question. Finally, all of them cite a general civilizational fragility. So they're aware that modern civilization is a complex system where if you get one failure, it cascades into failure after failure after failure. That's what they're particularly worried about. And it's supply chain failures. Energy grid failure is another nightmare for these people because the financial system collapses, and then there's no food in the cities for 48 hours, and on the 50th hour people start eating each other. That's where they think it's going. Or just political breakdown. It all triggers one collapse, triggers a system-wide failure, and it all goes down the pan. And that is what these people are worried about. So all I can say is I'm glad there's something that worries them, because ordinary people worry about the bills, the energy bill, the food bills, the safety on the streets, the safety of their children. Ordinary people have many, many worries, which is always the case, but they have many more worries in our society now than they used to have. And almost all of them are unnecessary, because almost all of the worries that now afflict our people are a direct or indirect result of the policy decisions enforced on us by the liberal political elite, by the Uni Party, whether it's Tory, because they're liberals too, Lib Dem, or Labour, or any of the others, whether it's the Democrats or the Republicans, whoever it is, it's all the same. They are there as a cipher, as a fig leaf for the rule of the super rich. And the super rich have created a society which is one long living hell of worries for most ordinary people, but it's not supposed to worry them. So I'm quite glad that they're worried. If you're worried about these same things, then like I say, there are things that you can do to protect yourself against the worst of this, in terms of some basic simple prep. At least gives you a chance. Right then, let me move on. It's 4:30 now, to another in the short series of Should Have Listened to Nick, i.e. I Told You So. And this one is about power. In particular, it's about thorium. Here we go. The world's first thorium nuclear reactor has been opened in China in the Gobi Desert. Well, so what? Well, we do have a problem with energy, not least because AI is gobbling up such vast amounts of it. And I read the other day that China has now made a really huge leap in thorium. This is a molten salt reactor. It's a form of technology, and it's now the world leader in this field, when it only began its thorium reactor program in 2011. Keep that date in your mind for a moment. Now, the design that the Chinese are using is based on molten salt reactor experimental research done in the United States in the 1960s. Imagine that. The United States did the research which has led to that thing being built and working in the 1960s. But unfortunately for the United States, after that, it did nothing with thorium. Nothing at all. It blew vast amounts of money in all sorts of things, not least keeping together a gigantic welfare state, not for the people who contribute, the people who pay the taxes, to the people who deserve help when they fall ill, when they have an accident, when they hit hard times, but no, a huge welfare thing for just a vast class of worthless, useless, idle, often dangerous parasites. Of all shades, shapes, colours, faiths and creeds, some are worse than the other, but every single part of the population has contributed to this vast parasite underclass, which is managed by a vast parasitic middle class overclass. But that's where America's money has gone down this bottomless rat hole. So that's why the Americans invented thorium molten salt reactor technology 60 years ago. But the Chinese have just developed it and made it work. So this is currently the only operational molten salt reactor in the world actively loaded with and testing thorium. And they found that they've now worked out that they can refuel it without turning it off. So that was a major problem before. Now, I looked into these things many years ago, rather the British National Party did. And we had a very, very capable man who worked in British nuclear fuels. And he came with all the facts and all the figures. And he was saying, thorium, we then were experimenting with it. It's ultra safe. It's molten salt. It's literally some kind of radioactive salt, which is kept molten by being enclosed. And that's how it works. But if the casing around the reactor cracks, it's exposed to air, it instantly freezes. So it doesn't do a Chernobyl and go all over the place. So they operate at low pressure. You could break the thing open and it all just freezes. It can't do any harm. They use radioactive waste and they sort of eat it, and they produced much less dangerous radioactive waste at the other end. So the British National Party had as its policy on energy, instead of wind farms and solar panels covering much of our best now agricultural land, it was to go hell for leather for thorium power. By now, we would have been world leaders. Bearing in mind, the Chinese only started this program in 2011. It was British National Party policy early in the 2000s. So had the British elite taken notice of me and the BNP 25 years ago, we would now be 10 years ahead of the Chinese. We wouldn't need any of the basically worthless green technologies which are around us. We wouldn't have gigantic fuel bills, crippling ordinary families, especially pensioners and families with young kids. And the country would be a world leader in a technology which everybody wanted. If only they'd listened to Nick. But they didn't. Right then, it's 1844. Shall I dive into this one or shall I keep it? I'm going to keep this one for you next time. I've got a population map. I'll show you the population map, actually. How about this? By way of a teaser. Here we go. Here's a population map of the world, showing all the countries, and the different colours show the point at which their population growth rate dropped below the replacement rate of 2.1. And all the ones which are in dark blue and anything in lighter blue or greeny, basically they're already there. The only ones which are still above that are red or orange or a very orangey yellow, basically. All the others are already basket cases. It's a huge, worldwide, catastrophic problem of civilizational wrecking proportions. And the question that I'll go into next week is to look at, so plenty of people say it's not really that difficult. All we need is a government which will say, pay people to have more kids and we'll solve the problem. I'm telling you, it's far more difficult than that. You don't just need a political revolution. To solve this problem, you would need 10 revolutions at once. Ain't going to happen. So you need to get on with securing your genetic legacy, your family legacy, your cultural legacy, your faith, your nation. You are the only one who can help get a little section of our people through this devastating bottleneck which is coming all our ways. Because there's no state solution to this. There's only the solution of what you do with your family, and at most what your family does in the community around it. Whether or not our people survive this worldwide catastrophe that is coming, sure as night, turns into day and back again. It depends on ordinary people doing it, because there's nothing that any state will be able to do about it. I'll tell you exactly why next time. But that's it for now for me. Let me just dive into the chat, see if we're joined by anybody else that I haven't said hello to. No, I don't think so. You're all here. Many of you joining us later, I know. Roger Addison says, Sir Richard Branson now has 4 boats to use to get away from the madness. Virgin Voyages. Well, there you go. White-based nations. Well, yeah, we're the worst. Well, we're not the worst, actually. No. South Korea, Singapore, they're even worse than us. China is even worse than us. India has just dropped below replacement birth rate. They've still got millions, billions of Indians to export, to be sent here, courtesy of everyone from Andy Burnham to Nigel Farage, and likewise to be sent to the United States, courtesy of everyone from the Democrats through to Elon Musk. They've got plenty of them, but there'll come a point when they'll hit the same catastrophic brick wall as the Chinese now are. Even the Maghreb, North Africa, Morocco, places like that, they're below replacement level, or just slipping. Turkey is below replacement level. This isn't just an anti-white thing that's made it worse. It's a product of industrial capitalism, feminism, and atheistic individualism. They're all part of the problem. And no population in the world is immune to it. Even in Africa, where their population is still basically a healthy rate, it's half what Britain was in the early 20th century, in the Victorian times. Even there, they're falling into the same problem. It really is. Anyway, more of that next week. Time, my friends, is up. I hope you've enjoyed the rather different show today. Andy says the BNP weren't just a nationalist organisation. They were at the cutting edge of informative ideas for surviving the 21st century back then. Andy, you are absolutely right. Thank you for being there. Right, then, let me finish off by telling you about the end slate, which, again, I'm not using a YouTube music thing, so it'll get killed on YouTube as a copyright breach. Instead, I've got a piece of a speech that I made to the Red, White and Blue British National Party, because we've been talking about the past a bit, Summer Festival back in 2007. And I've actually got the whole speech now on a very recent Substack post. So if you'd like to watch the whole thing, do come and join me on Substack. It's free, easy to use. I'm full of just some fantastic writers out there. You don't need to read anything else if you just dip into Substack once a day. There's so much good stuff out there. It's algorithms work that once you're looking at a few things that interest you, you'll find being brought to your attention other things of much the same vein or take you on a little bit further. It really is good. But anyway, that's where my full speech is. I'm just going to show you a little clip from it by way of the end slate. Let me just find it here. So I've got all ready to go. That's it. There we go. Ready to press, which I will do in a moment when I've reminded you, please, to join Jim Dowson tomorrow afternoon or wherever you can join him later. But they're live from 4 p.m. here on Purge TV. And to join me, if you possibly can, next Wednesday, where, God willing, I will have something for you at the same time and the same place. Until then, do please remember that freedom is never free, because the tree of liberty must be watered from time to time with the blood of martyrs and of tyrants. Deus Vult.
Afternoon was the attitude of the local BBC when the reporter on the end of the fluffy microphone thing was asking me why I was there and all the rest of it, and wasn't I there to try and stir up trouble. I thought, would they have done that to some black civil rights agitator at Stephen Lawrence's funeral? But aren't you here to exploit it and cause trouble? Of course they wouldn't have done. They wouldn't have dared to. And then this reporter said to me, but didn't he bring it upon himself? Can you imagine one of them even dreaming of saying that to one of the others in this country? Someone of any other ethnic group other than the British in general, or the English in particular. He brought it upon himself. Had that reporter been a man, he'd have ended on his backside there and then in all probability. As it was a female, I left it be. But I was livid, absolutely livid. And I was angry not just for that family and that incident, but because it's symptomatic of how the entire establishment elite in this country refuse even to recognise us, the native majority of this country, except as taxpayers, except as people they can send offensive, threatening letters to. Have you paid your TV licence? You know you haven't paid your TV. We know it. We're going to come and get you for it. And all they see us is as tax cows. Other than that, we're invisible to them. We're dirt beneath their feet. They don't even notice. That's the real problem. As I said before, the real problem isn't the others, the uninvited others in our country. It's the bastards who invited them in and made them first-class citizens over us. And our people are invisible, and in particular their suffering is invisible. And our purpose, our core purpose, is to make sure that the suffering no longer is invisible. It gets seen. No longer is it unheard. It's shouted from the rooftops. So more and more and more people know the injustice done to our folk and thereby want to stand up and do something to stop that injustice. That's our core purpose. Don't ever, ever forget it. Because at heart, this is no longer a political struggle. This is a civil rights struggle for the rights of the native peoples of these islands to be recognised, to have our own name, to have ourselves on the census form, to have our culture celebrated in our schools, to have it celebrated on our streets with our council taxpayers' money. It's not just politics, it's civil rights. That's the fight that we're now in. To which a Liberal might say, well, by what rights? What's different about you people? You're just a mongrel race anyway, aren't you? There's always threatened, you're just a mongrel race, a nation of immigrants. Any more can come in and they just become, the moment they set foot on this land, they become as British, as English as you and me. That's the line, isn't it? And I want to look through the history of this area, just briefly this afternoon, to show how untrue that is, how special we are, how close our relationship with this, our land, is. And this area, it's very pretty, isn't it? But it's not as